Hello, I'm Dr. Elliott, and today we're doing the density egg experiment. I'm going to teach fourth graders, such as Jimmy right here, how density works with eggs and water.
Hi, I'm Jimmy. I'm a fourth grader, and I will do everything in this experiment. I will gather all the materials, I will help with the experiment, and I will pretty much do it all on my own with just the mentoring help of Dr. Elliott.
Very good, Jimmy. Just be sure to follow my instructions word for word.
I will.
First, there are a number of materials needed to get this experiment on the go. We need eggs, water, cups, spoons, and salt.
I'll get the eggs. Oh, it's a bird's nest. Oh, how many eggs do we need?
2 will be perfect.
1, 2. We have 2 eggs.
Very good, Jimmy. Very good.
Thank you.
Alright, now that we have our eggs, next we should use some salt. You know, salt used to be very valuable back in the day, and was highly prized. But now, we could get it for $1.20 at a local store. Where's Jimmy? We should go find some salt.
I'm right here. I'll go get the salt. Oh my god, it's in the bird's nest again. This is good salt. Is this the right salt?
That is the perfect salt. Let's see how it looks. Right here we have Epsom rock salt. What we will do is pour it out on a table and grind it up into powder. Next up on our experiment that we need is cups to fill up the water with. Where's Jimmy?
Jimmy's right here. I'll go get the cups. Oh my gosh, it's in the bird's nest again. I found these cups and these cups. One's paper, one's plastic. Which one should we use?
I think we should use both of them to see if the paper or plastic will affect the buoyancy of the water.
I like that idea.
Alright, last thing we need is spoons. Now, where did Jimmy go?
Right here. I'll go get the spoons. Oh, it's in the bird's nest again. I found 2 spoons. Which one should we use?
Let me see. See, this spoon is longer and more sturdy. This one is flimsy and easily bendable. I say we go with this one. More professional.
Good idea.
Alright, here are all the materials in front of us. We have the spoon for stirring, the cups, the salt, and the eggs. Lastly, all we need is the water. And any old water works, so tap water is perfectly fine. Let's go back to the lab to get the water. Our hands seem to be full. Is there anyone who can help us open the door?
I can help.
Oh, it's Jimmy's sister, Jamie. Please.
I'm Jamie.
Alright, now we can open the door. Let's go to the lab.
After you, Si.
In conclusion, all the materials you'll need to conduct this experiment are 2 plastic cups, 2 paper cups, 1 spoon, 2 to 3 tablespoons of salt per experiment, 2 eggs, water, safety goggles, and then the mortar and pestle. Before we start our experiment, we're going to have Dr. Cole over here explain some lab safety rules.
Rule number 1. Report all accidents to your teacher to make sure that the lab environment is safe. Rule number 2. Keep all pathways clear. Rule number 3. Make sure that all long hair is tied so that it does not interfere with the experiment. Rule number 4. Make sure that you always wear permittable clothing. Closed-toed shoes and no loose baggy clothing.
Rule number 5 is to work quietly so you don't bother other people.
Rule number 6. Do not taste or smell chemicals. Even like salt, it can still be dangerous. Rule number 7 is do not put solids like the salt into the sink because it can ruin the pump. Rule number 8. Do not lay or sit on the table. Jamie, that means you.
Sorry.
Rule number 9. Make sure that the lab table is clean so that you can perform your experiment.
That'll take more time.
Now we are ready to go. Remember to listen to all the instructions from your teacher.
And one more thing. Before you start your experiment, make sure you put on safety goggles. Those are all our instructions, so let's get started. In case you don't have ordinary table salt, and you have big rock salts, you can use something like the mortar and pestle to put it in the bowl and grind it up. And remember, when experimenting, it's very important to always wear goggles for safety. First, we're going to set up our experiment. Let's put the salt in and grind it up. As you can see, Jimmy here is grinding up the salt into a nice powder to use in our experiment. Let's get a close-up of Jimmy. It's all about pushing down and applying pressure to the rock salt. Great job, Jimmy. After a few minutes of grinding and putting pressure on the salt, we have our finished product. As you can see, it's nice and powdery for us to use. Now, the next step in our experiment is filling up our cups with water. Thank you. Let's go over to any old faucet water, because any water would work for this experiment. Thank you, Jamie. We're going to fill this water up. Jamie, I'm sorry. Fill the water up, not quite to the top, because the egg will apply for extra volume. Perfect. About there is the perfect amount. Now let's fill all the cups up. Good. And remember, we're using both paper and plastic to account for the different types and see if the different variables will affect the experiment. First, we're going to conduct our experiment with the plastic cups. Now let's put the salt into one of the cups. We're going to use about 1 full tablespoon of salt to put into the cups. Good job, Jimmy. There we have about 1 full tablespoon. And now we're going to pour it into one of our cups. And the next step is to stir the cups up. This will take a couple minutes to make sure that the salt is thoroughly dissolved. Now that the first tablespoon is thoroughly stirred, we're going to add 1 more full tablespoon to the mixture. And we're going to continue to stir to make sure it's fully dissolved. Finally, it is time to conduct our experiment. Jimmy, will you please put one of the eggs into the normal water? As you can see, the egg is clearly sinking and is sitting at the very bottom of the container. Now let's try it with the salt water. In the salt water, the egg clearly floats up and comes to the top. Why do you think that is, Jimmy?
Is it because salt water is denser than fresh water?
Exactly. Salt water is denser, so there's more matter in the mixture, which makes it harder for the egg to push against it, causing it to float. We're done with the first part of the experiment, so let's clean up. We're going to take the eggs out of our cups. We're going to dry it off so that we can use it for the next experiment.
Don't squeeze too tightly, or else they will break.
Very good, Jimmy. It's very important for us to dry off the eggs so that there's no mixture from the previous experiment next time we try it out. Now that the eggs are dry, let's dispose of our water in cups. We're going to dump the water into the sink. And then we're done with the cups so we can throw them away. We just need to clean our table to make sure it's ready for the next experiment. Any dry paper towel will work. Perfect. We do our experiment with the paper cups. The first step is to regrind the salts. We're going to pour some in there. And then now we have to grind it up into a nice powder. We are repeating the steps we used in the last experiment. For our paper cups, they're a little bigger and have a little more water, so we're going to put in 3 full tablespoons of salt. Jimmy here is pouring the salt into the tablespoon. It's okay if we spill a little because we'll be able to clean it up later. We're going to pour 3 full tablespoons and make sure to stir after each tablespoon is added in.
Sorry.
For the sake of saving time, we've already added 2 tablespoons and stirred it up, so this is our 3rd tablespoon to stir. Jimmy needs to continue to stir for at least 1 minute to make sure the salt is completely and thoroughly dissolved. And now it's time to test our experiment for the 2nd time. We have both our cups ready with normal water and salt water. Jimmy, will you please grab the first egg and put it to the normal water?
Wait, can I do it?
Alright, looks like Jamie instead will be doing our experiment. Alright, Jamie, what we're going to do, just lightly put the egg into the water. And since these are not see-through, can we please have the camera come and show from the top? Clearly the egg is sinking in the water. Now let's test it for the 2nd time. Put the egg and drop it slowly into the saltwater cup. The egg is slowly coming to the top and floating, just like we predicted from the first experiment. As we learned from the last experiment, the egg will float in the salt water because the salt water is more dense and has more matter, making it harder for the egg to push against it, causing it to float. And in the less dense normal water, the egg will clearly push through and sink. And as we just tested, paper or plastic will not affect the outcome of the experiment. Isn't that right, Jimmy?
That is correct. No matter what cup you use, whether it's glass, paper, plastic, the egg will always float in salt water and not in normal water.
And lastly, all we need to do is clean our experiment. Now let's clean up. First, we gotta take the eggs out. We're taking the eggs out and drying them off so we could properly dispose of them. Now let's grab the 2nd egg.
Don't push too tightly or else the egg will crack.
Now we need to get rid of our cups. We're going to pour both our cups down the drain. And lastly, we just need to throw all our materials away in a trash can approved by your teacher.
We have all the trash and we're going to take it to the trash can. Follow us.
Am I out of the screen?
The eggs are the only thing that will go in the normal trash. Everything else will be recycled.
Very good. Now all we need to do is go and clean up. We need to clean up our table. Thoroughly clear off everything so that next time the experiment is done, they're working with the proper clean station. We need to push in our chairs and finally put away all our experiment materials. We'll put our mortar and pestle right here. And finally, our experiment's over, so we don't need our safety goggles anymore. Jimmy, what did you learn today?
I learned that an egg will float in salt water.
Why is that, Jimmy?
Well, it is like that because when an object is more dense than water, it will sink. However, when the object, such as the egg, is less dense than salt water, it will float. Therefore, the particles in salt water keep the egg from sinking.
Very good. As Jimmy just explained, the egg in our experiment was more dense than the normal water, thus causing it to sink. And in the salt water,
The salt water was more dense than the egg, so the egg floated to the top. Jamie, get over here. What did you learn?
I learned that it's easier to float in the ocean instead of a pool because the ocean is salt water.
Perfect.
All right, guys. That's all for our experiment. Thanks for sticking with us. Hope you had fun and hope you learned a thing or two. Say goodbye, guys.
Till next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.